Alrighty, welcome back to Retangda Sports, folks. This is the second episode, and I am super excited to cover the Wimbledon finals, both the ladies' championship as well as the men's championship. Two amazing, contrasting matches that have given us a lot of food for thought in the tennis community. Now, before I get into the analysis and breaking everything down, please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you are watching this on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on Apple Music or on Spotify, please, can you give us a 5-star rating? But if you don't think it's 5-star, give your honest review on what you think of my podcast. But I really appreciate the support so far. The feedback I've received thus far has been really positive, and I would really appreciate it if you had any thoughts on what you would like to hear me talk about, as well as how you think I'd be able to improve this podcast and to grow this community better. Please let me know down in the comments below or on Instagram. My Instagram should be in the description down below if you're watching on YouTube, and my Instagram should be as well on both Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Now, let's get into the action. Looking at the Ladies' Championship final first, I really only have 3 words to describe that final between Iga Świątek and Amanda Anisimova. For me, that was clinical, it was suffocation, and culmination. Right, let's begin where it all ended, and that was with Iga. This was her sixth Grand Slam title, her first Wimbledon crown, and a performance so complete that it became almost surreal watching. It was a 6-love domination of Amanda. This was the first 6-love in a Grand Slam final in nearly 40 years. 57 minutes of just ruthless clarity from Iga. Iga was surgical. There was no hesitation in her game. There was no stutter step by any means. She looked like prime Federer, slicing through spaces, making the court look impossibly small for her opponents. She made Amanda look like a junior in that final yesterday. And her returns off of Amanda's serve and Amanda's really good ground stroke game had teeth to bite, and her movement devoured all the angles which Amanda tried to create, and she played with extreme ferocity, which I've never seen, and I don't think anyone has seen her play like this on grass before. There was not a moment of doubt at all. There was no negotiation, trying to swing momentum one way or another. It was just precision and intention from the first ball. And perhaps the most impressive part is that she played with zero inhibition. If you know Iga, you know how much weight is in her playing on grass. I mean, the weight of history did not pin her down at all. In fact, it elevated her. Like I mentioned in a previous episode, and this is kind of the spine of tennis and just sports in general, but regarding losses and the ghosts of the past, in terms of the ghosts of the past when losing a final, it's either you confront those ghosts and those voices in your head, or you let them control you. And Iga, over the last month, by every metric, she has confronted those past ghosts and those past demons. I mean, tactically, strategically, emotionally, she showed that she has fully confronted them, This was a player whose reputation on grass had wobbled, and people were saying that her aura had been fading. Some were questioning whether she needed to make a changing coach. But now, none of those doubts mean anything. At this point, even though we're only sitting just over 24 hours later when I'm recording this, they have all become a distant memory and completely irrelevant. She came into the Wimbledon seeded 8th, which was her lowest placement since the pandemic reset. and she left it with her name etched forever in the walls of the All England Club, which is the club that hosts the Wimbledon Championship every single year. As she has won this tournament, for those who don't know, to give you some history, she has now been given access to the All England Club at any time in history. She's been given access to using the facilities. She's allowed to come to any game that's hosted there. She's allowed to sit in the boxes while Wimbledon is being played as well. So winning Wimbledon, if you didn't know, gives you access to a lot of perks that are not so common with the other Grand Slams. Now, this is now the 6th major title for Iga, placing her above Maria Sharapova, who is an all-time tennis great, and just one behind Venus Williams. And if you know about the surname Williams, Venus and Serena Williams, they have a great legacy of tennis. But now Iga's one behind Venus Williams. She's also closing on Justine Henon's territory as well, who was also a phenomenal player back in the day. Now, Iga's last major, which was the last tournament she won, was back in 2024 at the French Open of the Roland Garros. To be able to come back to winning ways with a Grand Slam is absolutely astounding. It's more than just a redemption story. It's a culmination of a year of fighting herself, fighting her mind, her emotions, fighting through the pain, and now it has all culminated in her defeating the surface that she has historically struggled on the most. For me, this is one of her most complete tournaments I've ever watched. She turned grass court score lines. Oh my goodness, I can't speak in it. She turned clay court score lines and transferred them onto the grass court. That's not something that is ordinary to see. But now I need to move on to Amanda Anisimova. You know, she came out brave, bold, and brilliant into her run into the final. I mean, just 48 hours before the final, she had taken down the world number one, and she didn't blink at all. I mean, she had a couple of wobbles in that game against Sabalenka, but that match of mental toughness, you know, to triumph over Sabalenka, you know, to get her to this final is something that really has brought her incredibly far in her tennis journey, if you know about her story, you know. But today in the final, Amanda found herself not playing Iga, but really playing the scoreboard, the silence, the weight of history, really. She was not just playing on grass. She became a shadow chasing meaning in a match that was already spinning away from her. When you're down 6-love, and then in the second set, you're sitting at 1-love, you're no longer battling strategy. You're battling shame, legacy, the fear of becoming like a trivia question almost, you know. For sure, you're gonna see, you know, in like a countdown game show or in some sort of trivia game show, they're gonna say who was the last person in a Wimbledon final to win 6-love, you know. That's a horrible headspace for an athlete to be in, and it completely showed. It was a mental capitulation. But to be honest, I feel for Amanda, I really do. This loss will leave a long-lasting scar, but it's worth nothing. Sorry, it's worth noting that she reached a Wimbledon final. You know, she beat the number one player in the world. She'll enter the US Open riding on a career high ranking. She'll go into the US Open being within the top 10 and as a fan favorite and a dark horse now. Her story isn't over. It's still being written. Now I want to turn our attention briefly to the burning question we sometimes hear from casual fans. Couldn't Iga have just let Amanda have a game? And let me answer the question with the truth. Absolutely not. Because, folks, this is sports, and in sports there's no clock, there's no mercy baked into the rules. You don't hand out games like tissues to a weeping opponent. You win every point you can. You smother your opponent as best as you can. That's what greatness demands. I mean, look at Iga Świątek's tennis idol, Rafael Nadal. Did he ever relent? Did he ever give any air to his opponents when they were drowning? No, he did not. That's the contrast between these players, you know. That's the contract that these players sign when they're 9 years old. When you're just starting tennis, to fight for every single blade of grass, you fight for every single inch on the tennis court. And Iga honored that contract perfectly yesterday. Finals of Wimbledon are a strange world, you know. The walk from the clubhouse to the center court is ceremonial and it's haunting. The parking lots are completely empty. The locker rooms feel like a cathedral of silence. Every step you take echoes with history when it comes to Wimbledon finals. Every glance at the stands reminds you of the gravity of the moment that could possibly define your career as a tennis player. You know, commercial bonuses, media contract, prestige, all of it rides on one single match. And Iga, she rose to the moment like a phoenix draped in white and gold. In her hands, you know, tennis, you know, in her hands, tennis looked like painting. And in Amanda's, it looked like survival. That's the brutal honesty of what we saw yesterday. I mean, that is not a knock on Amanda by any stretch of the imagination. It's a salute to Iga's ability to be able to make the most talented players look like underprepared and to look like juniors. So, what does this mean going forward? It means that Iga, once thought to be a clay court specialist only and a clay court merchant, has now unlocked the grass and now sits with one Grand Slam away from the career Grand Slam. It means her aura is no longer fading. It is completely blazing right now. And it means that the field has a new bar to reach. She's not back. She never left. Iga never left. Let's just get one thing clear. She just needed time to recalibrate. And now with a sixth major tucked under her belt and her name freshly sewn into the sacred fabric of Wimbledon lore, she walks forward not just as a champion of 2025, but as one of the great generational forces in this current era. The narrative that Iga cannot play on grass is now well and truly buried. And I hope it stays like that. And I hope all of these pundits who yap their mouths can finally see that Iga is not just a one-dimensional player. And I think she shut all of their mouths up when she won that Wimbledon title. Absolute cinema we saw from the ladies' final. Absolute clinical precision. Now, moving on to the gentlemen's championship final. Yeah, this is absolutely insane. Today's the day that the final happened. It happened a couple hours ago, and I'm still in shock, to be honest. Let me be transparent. I did not expect this match to tilt so decisively. I put decisively in quotation marks, but so decisively in Sinner's favor on this surface, especially. I mean, the grass has long been more forgiving for Alcaraz's explosiveness, his variety, and his innate feel of the tennis ball, you know. But Sinner flipped the script with a performance that was precise, unshakable. It was calculated. I mean, he played a technically sound match from start to finish, never overreaching or kind of buckling under the pressure, which we will get to further on in the section. But what struck out for me immediately was how dominant the central axis of the court Sinner was. He didn't need to extend wide or play with immense variety. He simply applied pace and depth that cut through the court like a scalpel. It's a strategy that suffocates, by denying Alcaraz the angle and rhythm he feeds on. He was able to kind of nullify Alcaraz's strength. If you watch Alcaraz, you see that he is on the front foot if you're playing angles and you're playing wide. A part of Alcaraz's game, people say Alcaraz has 0 holes in his game, but from watching Alcaraz, when you get into center court rallies, from what I've seen this Wimbledon anyway, when he's gotten into the center court rallies where he's returning from the center of the court, he's come up short most of the time, or he's come up short in the sense of losing the point, but because he knows he needs to be able to return just as deep as his opponent, he'll oftentimes overshoot his return, which has cost them certain games and certain sets in this Wimbledon run. Now, when the opportunity arose, Sinner struck behind Alcaraz with absolute consistency, using linear backhands up the line, not as a sledgehammer, but as like soft touches to put balls behind Alcaraz. Alcaraz never was really on the front foot except for when he broke Sinner twice in that first set. Now, the turning point for me came late in the fourth set. Alcaraz at this point was already down 2 sets, and Alcaraz was pressing, looking to break back Sinner. He was looking to break back, and Sinner at this point in time hit 2 of the cleanest and boldest backhands you'll ever see in a final, or that I've ever seen in a final, if I can speak for myself. The first one was an off balance. He was fading away and still managing to hit the line against Carlos's forehand. That was a minor miracle of timing and nerve. Being able to be fading away and still with precision be able to clip the line. That's just something that was preordained that he was going to hit that shot. That's not a shot that you work on. And the second backhand was a return winner off of a heavy kick serve to the backhand side. It flattened out and the pace almost impossibly landed inside of the service box. Those aren't just clutch shots. They're statements showing that he was going to be there and that this was his tournament to finally overcome Alcaraz after so many finals where he's lost to Alcaraz. Now, if we look at the match stats real quick, if I pull them up here, looking at the match stats confirms just how effective and smart Sinner played. It was just the culmination of efficiency. His first service points won. Both players hit 75% of their first. Both players won 75% of their first serves, but Sinner landed a higher first serve percentage overall at 62% compared to Carlos Alcaraz's of 53%, which is significantly below Carlos's general game-to-game average. Now, their second serve points won. Sinner again edged it out by winning 58% of those points to Carlos Alcaraz's 51 points. Now, looking at the service rating, Sinner posted a 201 to Alcaraz's 187. I'll have these stats on the screen so that you can follow along as I'm speaking, if you're watching on YouTube, obviously. Now, this is a very key stat that I'm about to say now. The break points saved. Sinner saved 67%, so that's 4 out of 6 of his break points. And then Carlos, just behind him at 56%, saved 5 out of 9. And this is where things really get interesting. Tennis is a game of extremely fine margins, and in another game, if Carlos Alcaraz increases his first serve percentage to about 60%, we'll be able to see a lot different numbers, which is incredible for me to think. I'm a guy who loves numbers, and to see how those numbers would change if Alcaraz was 7% better on his first serve is quite remarkable. Now, moving on to their return points won, Sinner claimed 36% of his return points, while Carlos only managed 32%. And this stat here for me was quite remarkable. This final one here, which I'll name, Sinner edged out 124 of 238 points over Alcaraz. Sinner won 52% of all of the points today, and Alcaraz only won 48%. That is some of the finest margins. That is a slim 4% margin in total points. And that tells the truth that this final wasn't a blowout. Even though Sinner won 6-4, 6-4, 6-4 in the end, this wasn't a blowout. It was a match defined by very key moments. And in each one, Sinner came out clearer, he came out braver, and he came out sharper. That's just the brutal truth of this. I mean, if you look at the third set where Sinner was able to break Carlos Alcaraz, there's certain shots where on a different day Alcaraz makes those shots 10 times out of 10, but today just was not his day. And that's just the brutal honesty of sports. You'll have a guy who's on one day and a guy who's off, and it's only the best who remain consistent, and I'm not saying that to put Alcaraz down. I'm just saying that in sports the margins are razor blade sharp. The razor blade thin, and if you're not on that day and your opponent is, you'll see a very clear scoreline like we did today. Carlos still out-aced Sinner though, having 15 to Sinner's 8. That's significant, but it didn't translate to control. Why, you ask? It's because Sinner neutralized those aces with excellent second serve returns, particularly attacking Carlos's second serve delivery with purpose. Him stepping into the court, attacking the ball, really helped Sinner attack Carlos's second serve. Now, Carlos had 7 double faults, which is very surprising because he normally serves really well. That's a stat that will sting him completely. Now, because that is completely outrageous, because most of them came in high leverage moments when Carlos was trying to force the issue. But Sinner, by contrast, only had 2 double faults the entire match, showing that there was one person who was really trying to force something, and another guy who was just trying to remain consistent in terms of his game plan, because he had the ability to remain consistent. He didn't need to force anything. Now, this match was not your flashy shot making or highlight reel, wizardry which we normally see from a Sinner Alcaraz final. It was won just by pure discipline and fine margins, with purpose, with the mindset of confronting, not avoiding the memories of the Roland Garros, which Sinner had in his mind 100%. Iga Świątek's name might feel distant in this recap, but in truth, the psychological journey mirrors Sinner's, should I say. We said earlier on in this episode that this game demands a level of confrontation of mental weight. It's either you face it or it drags you. And Sinner must feel like Iga, in terms of grass, that he's finally faced the demons of Roland Garros. He confronted the pressure of the occasion, the ghost of Roland Garros, and the shadows, which casted down by Carlos's rapid rise. He finally answered and sealed them. Iga was surgical. She looked like prime Federer, shaking the court, unrelenting, playing without any inhibition, and it feels fair, poetic even, to draw that parallel with Sinner's performance here today. Both entered these Wimbledon finals carrying huge mental baggage, and they both left with a clarity of the game and mind that felt almost inevitable. Strategically, Sinner's camp clearly had one key idea: don't let Carlos live on second serves. Simple as that. That would have been like giving a match to a tiger. So Sinner adjusted accordingly, going for bigger targets, sometimes dialing down the velocity of his first serve in exchange for better positioning and more effective serve plus one play, or like a serve and volley play. In the fourth set, when he was just 2 holds away from when he was 2 holds away, those adjustments he made paid absolute dividends. The forehand serves he sent out wide at 110 plus miles per hour to Carlos's forehand side were fearless. They were championship serves. If he dropped those 2 points, that puts him in a position where he would be looking at juice. That would have actually put him at him being broken and Alcaraz being able to come back and put the game back at level, put it back on serve, and the momentum would have been in Alcaraz's favor. And who knows what happens if Alcaraz is able to play that set out, and then now we move to a 5th set. Who knows what would have happened? Would the demons of Roland Garros be still playing in his mind? Would he have been able to overcome them? We don't know. We can go the if, buts, and maybes, but sports is all about absolutes. And it wasn't just about his serving. It was Sinner's return game too. Sinner posted a return rating of 118 to Alcaraz's only 100. That's a wide margin at this level of elite tennis. He broke serve in 4 of 9 chances. That's 44%, while Alcaraz only managed 33%. These are high conversion rates in finals. This further proves that Sinner didn't just survive, but he executed. As the match stretched on, Sinner never allowed it to become like a track meet. He kept playing in the center of the court, reducing the variables, and he made Carlos hit those reactive positioning shots. He didn't let Carlos anticipate anything or to dictate anything. That neutralized the drop shot, which only netted Carlos three wins in 9 attempts, if I'm not mistaken. When you're best off of speed, weapon isn't working, and the guy across the net keeps taking time away from you, the walls begin to close in you. And I think Alcaraz felt that today, that he couldn't rely on the speed, on his touch much. He just had to go ball for ball with Sinner in the middle of the court and just slug it out. And Sinner is a clinical ball striker. If we're just going ground stroke for ground stroke, Sinner has a better ground stroke than Carlos Alcaraz. It's more consistent. And in this game, that paid dividends. And then looking at this final, there's those intangible things, the pressure, the histories, the scars. Carlos has in Grand Slam finals up till this point has been 5 for 5, but there's a first time for everything, I guess. And if you're gonna lose one, lose it while fighting to the final point against an opponent playing the match of their life, and that was Sinner today. it was almost poetic seeing how Sinner won today. It was quite a match to watch. I personally am an Alcaraz fan, but seeing Sinner being able to overcome the voices and the shadows of Roland Garros was really good to see. It tells me that he is really ready for this rivalry to continue, between this on-court rivalry, should I say, rather, between him and Alcaraz. Now, Jannik Sinner came into this match not as the favorite by the general population, even though the bookies and people had Jannik as the favorite, but he came in as the player with more to prove. Even though Carlos was trying to come in to win a third title in a row, he had the loss to Carlos in Paris weighing heavily on him, but he turned that pain into precision. He walked through the fog of past heartbreak and he emerged, clear-eyed. He now holds 2 slam titles in his last 3 majors, and with the hard court season ahead, where he is historically at his most comfortable, the story is far, far from over. And what about Carlos? Carlos will be back. There's no question about it. His talent remains generational, but today belonged to the quieter man with the more iron will. Simple as that. And to think that these players are both only 22 and 23 years old, we are witnessing the dawn of a golden era. And what I really love about these 2 players is the mutual respect that they have for each other and that they have for their respected teams. You see when Sinner was going up to his box today to go and be with them after he had just won, Alcaraz, along with the crowd, was clapping Sinner until he came back down. I mean, that just shows that these boys are just young men of absolute class and absolute champions, that they know that off the court they can be mates, but on the court business is business. And when you hear them talking about each other in finals they've been together, whether Alcaraz has won or Sinner has won, they speak so well and so highly of each other. That just lets me know that these young men are great for the face of tennis. They are, and I use this phrase very, very, very lightly, but they are the new generation of the big 3, or at this point in time, it's the big 2. They still need to do quite a bit of work to get to the stage of Rafa and Federer and Djokovic, but they are laying the groundwork for a new era of tennis where we see Djokovic in this Wimbledon run. You can start to see the legs have gone. He's still a great tennis player, Djokovic, but I think we're getting to a point now where we really need to start talking about this conversation. It's a time for Djokovic to pack it in. It's a very pertinent question, but not to deviate from what I'm talking about. These 2 young men have now laid the foundations of an on-court rivalry that is going to feed generations. It is going to give us so many more finals like this for us tennis fans to look forward to. And all we can do is just marvel at the fact that there's a possibility that we have a decade of this final. Folks, that is the end of my Wimbledon recap. I have enjoyed the last 2 weeks of tennis. It has been one of my favorite Wimbledon campaigns just because of the unpredictability. It's so amazing, the if buts and maybes of sports. In the quarterfinal, Sinner was 2 sets down to Grigor Dimitrov. He was 2 sets down, and by whatever happened with Dimitrov, he gets an injury in his pec and now he's forced to retire. Most likely, Dimitrov was going to win that semi-final, just looking at how the progression was moving and how the scale was so tilted towards him. We wouldn't have seen this today if it wasn't for that injury. That's the beauty of sports, that this is the best form of reality TV. Sports is the best form of reality TV. There is nothing that is as real as sports. And this is why I'm so excited to be able to give you guys these thoughts that I have, looking at the data, being able to translate this all to you guys, to the audience that is maybe listening to this, that watches sports intently, or the audience that just wants to know about the sports. I'm really excited to be able to do this further. And that brings me to the end of today's episode. Guys, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate your time. Again, if you haven't liked, please like. If you haven't left a comment, please leave a comment. I really do want to hear what you guys have to say. How did you guys feel this Wimbledon campaign went? Thank you guys again for listening.